Neville Longbottom and the Boy Who Lived by Cast a Spell. Chapter 1. The Son of Frank and Alice Longbottom.
Neville Longbottom's heart felt heavy as he walked the sterile halls of St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries. As he walked through the ward, all he could hear were the whispers of the past echoing around in his head, mingling with the hushed tones of healers. As he passed by one of the rooms, he overheard a conversation between two doctors, their words causing a pang of sorrow to grip his heart. They spoke of his parents, Alice and Frank Longbottom, and how they were tortured into insanity by Death Eaters, their minds forever trapped in a nightmarish world of memories and shadows. Tears welled up in Neville's eyes as he listened, the weight of his parents' sacrifice and suffering pressing down on him. Taking a deep breath, Neville pushed open the door to his parents' room and sat on a chair next to their beds. There was so much he wanted to talk to his parents about. He had so many questions about Hogwarts, the classes, about becoming a first-year student, but he knew these questions would never get answered. As Neville sat there, lost in his thoughts, his grandmother, Augusta Longbottom, appeared beside him.
"Neville, dear, it's time for us to go,"
she said gently, her voice tinged with both sadness and strength.
"You have much to do before you begin your journey to Hogwarts."
Neville nodded and gathered his things. Before leaving, he turned back to his parents.
"I just wanted to say goodbye,"
he managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper.
"I'll make you proud. I promise."
As Neville turned to leave, his mother reached out and grasped his hand. Although he knew she probably didn't know what was going on, in that moment it felt as if she had said everything he needed to hear.
"I'll make you proud, Mum,"
Neville whispered. He leaned down and kissed her hand gently before pulling away, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. With a final nod to his parents, Neville followed his grandmother out of the hospital towards Diagon Alley.
The sun shone brightly over the cobblestone streets of Diagon Alley, casting a warm glow upon the bustling crowds of witches and wizards going about their daily business. Neville and his grandmother stood at the entrance of the magical shopping district. Together they walked through the crowded streets, passing shops with colourful displays of magical wares and enchanting creatures. Neville's eyes darted from one storefront to another, taking in the sights with a sense of awe and curiosity. As Neville walked past Ollivander's wand shop, his eyes drawn to the intricate display of wands in the window, he stopped and stared, captivated by the variety of magical instruments before him. Suddenly, his grandmother clicked her fingers in front of him, breaking his reverie. "You're not getting a wand, Neville," she said firmly. "You already have one." Neville hesitated before mustering the courage to speak up.
"But Gran,"
he began,
"I would like a wand of my own. Dad's wand is great, but it doesn't quite feel like mine. I don't think it will respond to me the same way."
His grandmother raised an eyebrow, a knowing look in her eyes. "Neville, what's wrong with your father's wand? It belonged to a great aura who faced you-know-who 3 times and survived. Your father was a talented wizard with a powerful wand." Neville sighed, realizing his plea might fall on deaf ears.
"I understand, Gran. It's just, I wish for a wand that truly feels like it's mine,"
Augusta retorted, shaking her head. "You're being silly, Neville. That wand is now yours, and that's that. Anyway, we need to get the shopping done before you go to Hogwarts tomorrow. Now move along." With a resigned expression, Neville nodded, accepting his grandmother's decision. They then turned and headed towards the bookshop Flourish and Blots, where Neville picked up his school books for his first year at Hogwarts. As they entered the bustling store, the shelves were lined with magical textbooks of all shapes and sizes. Neville was in awe as he scanned the titles, his excitement building for his upcoming magical education. After selecting his books with the help of a friendly shop assistant, they left Flourish and Blots and made their way to Madame Malkin's robe shop. Inside, Neville was fitted for his Hogwarts robes, standing on a stool as Madame Malkin worked her magic with her tape measure, ensuring that his robes fit him perfectly for the start of term. With his supplies in hand and his new robes draped over his arm, the only thing left to do was to board the Hogwarts Express the next morning.
Neville felt a rush of excitement and nervousness wash over him as he headed back to his grandmother's one last time before he was officially a Hogwarts student. When the two had entered the house, Neville put his school books and wand in the corner next to the unlit fireplace. His grandmother took off her coat and sat down on the sofa. Even though he didn't say a word, she could tell he had become extremely anxious about tomorrow.
Neville, my boy, if you get sorted into Hufflepuff, it won't be so bad. But if you find yourself in Gryffindor, oh, your parents would be so proud of you.
Neville nodded at her words, grateful for the encouragement.
What if I get sorted into the other houses?
He asked. Augusta chuckled softly, her eyes twinkling with affection.
Oh, my dear boy, you're not clever enough for Ravenclaw, and we all know only the truly wicked end up in Slytherin. Hufflepuff will suit you just fine.
Neville couldn't help but smile at his grandmother's teasing words, but his smile soon faded as she shot up so quickly it made him jump.
Where is Trevor?
She suddenly exclaimed, looking around in search of Neville's missing toad. Neville's expression turned sheepish as he realized he had once again misplaced his pet.
I'm not sure, Gran. I must have left him somewhere.
Augusta shook her head in exasperation.
You've lost him again! What will everyone think if you show up at Hogwarts without a pet?
Neville shrugged.
Most students have owls now. I think toads are a bit old-fashioned now. I'll be the only one that has one. Old-fashioned, you say?
Augusta retorted with a feigned air of offence.
Are you calling me old? In my day, everyone had a toad, thank you very much. If it was good enough for me, it's good enough for you.
With a small nod, Neville relented, knowing his grandmother's fondness for tradition.
Yes, Gran, a toad it is then. Off to bed with you now,
Augusta said with a smile, her tone affectionate yet firm.
You have a big day ahead of you tomorrow. Hogwarts awaits, my dear boy. As Neville bid his grandmother good night and headed to his room, a mix of excitement and nervousness filled his head as he closed his eyes, hoping to find respite in the quiet of his room. As Neville tried to drift off to sleep, his mind concocted funny and silly scenarios of the adventures that awaited him. In one scenario, he pictured himself accidentally shrinking his robes during a charms lesson, causing them to flutter comically around him like mischievous butterflies. Another scenario had Neville imagining himself befriending a clumsy house elf named Babbity, who whisked him away to the kitchens for a feast fit for a king once the rest of the castle was asleep. With dreams of Hogwarts filling his head, it wasn't long before he finally drifted off to sleep.
The morning sun filtered through the curtains of Neville's room, casting a warm glow over the familiar surroundings. Today was the day he had been eagerly anticipating, his journey to Hogwarts. Excitement mingled with a hint of nervousness as he thought about the adventures that awaited him. With a newfound determination in his heart, Neville started to imagine himself in his Hogwarts robes, a sense of pride filling him as he imagined walking in his parents' footsteps. The ticking clock hanging on the wall snapped him out of his daydream. He hurried downstairs to find his grandmother already waiting for him, a look of disapproval on her face as she took in his attire.
You're not going to Hogwarts in your pajamas, Neville. Get changed this instant, you silly boy.
His grandmother scolded in her no-nonsense tone. Realizing his mistake, Neville hurried back upstairs to change, a blush creeping up his cheeks at his oversight. Once properly dressed, He rushed back downstairs, only to be met with another reminder from his grandmother.
And don't forget Trevor.
She called out, prompting Neville to make a quick trip back to his room to retrieve his faithful toad companion.
Finally. Right, well, let's go then.
His grandmother declared, her tone brimming with a mix of impatience and excitement. As soon as Neville took Augusta's hand, they disapparated to King's Cross Station, the bustling hub of both Muggles and wizards. As they arrived between platforms 9 and 10, Neville became quite confused.
Where is platform 9 3/4?
His grandmother let out a scoff at his question. Without warning, she grabbed Neville's hand and propelled him through the seemingly solid brick wall. To Neville's amazement, the barrier dissolved, revealing the hidden platform bursting with students, parents, and magical creatures ready for the Hogwarts Express.
Right, well, it's time for you to go. Make sure you write to me when you get there, and let me know when you get sorted into Hufflepuff. Now, give me a quick squeeze before you go.
Neville embraced his grandmother, then took his belongings onto the train.
Neville!
She screamed. He turned around, expecting there to have been some kind of emergency, but instead she stared at him with a look of disbelief on her face. In her hand was Trevor.
Merlin's beard Neville if you lose that damn toad.
I won't, Gran, I promise.
Her face softened as she gave Neville back his toad and gently caressed his cheek.
Now you go to Hogwarts and make us all proud. Off you go.
And with that, Neville hopped onto the train, gave a quick wave goodbye to his grandmother, and just like magic, the train started to set off to Hogwarts.